We're back with our coverage at ONS 2017. We're here with Chris Wright talking about network virtualization and containers. And Chris, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for being here. And I'm going to make a terrible pun right now. You wear a lot of hats at Red Hat. I'm aware of this. You were in charge of a number of areas in networking, service assurance, orchestration, Mano. But right before we got on stage here to do this, we talked about maybe a new term, not the term itself, but maybe when you put these phrases together, it's operationalizing app use, but also operationalizing the platform. Can you describe what that means for our viewers?
Well, we've been spending a ton of time focusing on building the platform, and that's about, in the network function virtualization space, that's the NFV platform, or sometimes called the NFVI, the infrastructure. Getting that to the point where it can really produce the packet processing throughput that we're looking at to achieve from this platform has been the core focus, and we're there. We're really getting this to the point where it's, as a platform, it's highly functional, and now we've got to look at getting applications on the platform. There's some onboarding work that needs to be done. There's ensuring that the application is operating to the service level that you're really trying to provide for the customers, the end customers. There's the orchestration. You've got multiple network functions that need to work together. So things like service chaining and how you distribute this application across the platform. And so that's kind of that operationalizing the applications on the platform. It's the next step that's really critical to unlocking the value that we're trying to build in NFV.
Now you talked also, again, prior to this, about how important automation is in the network. Again, for the deployment of apps and apps themselves, but also for the telco themselves. The automation and the telco may be a little bit further behind than the more edge-leaning technologies. Is that correct?
I think what we're seeing is a lot of automation in the enterprise, in IT, and it's absolutely a big part of what we're doing with NFV in the telco environment. So we're trying to bring these technologies to the telcos so that they can be agile, they can move quickly, they can adjust their networks to meet the current demands of the workloads. Automation there is critical. That's really about this orchestration, how you place the workloads. We're creating a platform that's rich with APIs. Now we need to create the automation layers to drive those APIs and service the end customer requirements, which are providing network functions from the service providers.
Now during the Open Networking Summit over the last few days, we've had a few people give us their description, some in very simplistic form and some in more technical form, about what containers do, what's the functionality of containers or containerization. Is it really all about packaging and deploying applications? Is that really the end result of that?
Yeah, I think at the essence of what is a container, it's a mechanism for combining an application plus its immediate dependencies, and it becomes the vehicle for delivering that application into your application platform. What we've been building in NFV is first starting with the legacy equipment, which is physical appliances, and moving those to be virtual appliances. I call that kind of the first step, or naive or simplistic P2V transition. Once you virtualize, you're now giving yourself this platform and APIs for deploying the application. You could start decomposing the application to functional blocks that could independently scale, and that's starting to make the application more cloudy or cloud native. And many of the cloud native applications in the forward-looking deployments, not in NFV necessarily, but certainly in enterprise, IT, and web scale companies, are looking at how containers can help make them be more efficient and build out these sort of microservices software architectures. We're going to see something similar play out here in the NFV space, where we're moving from physical to virtual and then to cloud, and part of cloud and cloud native is where can I leverage the efficiency of containers in the network, in addition to some of the work we've already done to ensure virtualized functions work in the network as well.
Now I'd like to also get maybe a description from you about the difference between containers or containerization and container networking, and what kind of pressure does that put on the network as far as container networking?
One of the things you get with containers is the ability to really densely pack applications onto a platform. It's a really lightweight, minimal overhead vessel for the application. With that increased density and this kind of movement in the industry towards microservices, which is decomposing your application to smaller and smaller functional units, you're creating a pressure in the network for more IP addresses landing on a single box. So virtual machines, maybe you have 10 virtual machines, and maybe you have 100 containers, or 100 virtual machines, 1,000 containers. So you can see how we're creating address space pressure. Things like IPv6 become really important, and certainly the efficiency and dynamic requirements of any kind of virtualized network just get magnified at that scale. So how do you quickly address any particular container, discover the services that the containers are sort of advertising to each other? Service discovery becomes a critical component as well.
Do you feel like maybe from a business sense or even a technology perspective that the demand for network virtualization technologies are exceeding your ability in the open source community to keep up with that?
Well, I don't think so. No, I think what we're seeing in the open source world is we're actually driving the technology that's building these platforms. So in a sense, it's the other way around, where the technology can move really quickly. What's challenging is to get it into production, get it into real use cases, because any transition takes real time. So developers can move pretty quickly, especially when you're collaborating globally in these large communities. And it's back to that first point, operationalizing this environment, getting it to the point where it's really functional in production, which might include, for a company, people, process, culture changes, because the more you automate, the more you move away from your old style of doing business, that takes time, and ingesting that technology and that change, I think, is actually slower than open source community's ability to generate innovation and technology change.
Now also, we've had a number of people on this stage talk about various use cases where big data analytics facilitated their end use case. Let's talk. I want to focus on automation. Can you give us a use case or example of where automation would facilitate that end use case as well? Can you give us maybe an example of a vertical that would be impacted by automation?
I think it starts all the way at the beginning, from developers building applications. So in many cases, it's about improving efficiency. So automation is letting a machine do something that a human could do, but that's manual intervention. Can you just allow the computer to essentially follow the same steps that the human would do, eliminate the human error potential, and increase efficiency? So something like building an application, which is the developer is still the creative impetus behind the application, but moving that application out of the developer's hands into some testing environment and into pre-production and production environments, automating that is going to improve the efficiency of how quickly can you go from developer tests to production. So it's not a specific vertical example, it's just a really simple way to look at what we would call a CI/CD pipeline. How can you quickly move code from developers to production? Automation is also important in the infrastructure side. So as we're building up these systems, like an NFV platform, it's really a distributed system. It's complex to manage. You're generating a lot of data about what its current state is, how it's operating. Taking action against that data with human intervention is going to take time and be slow, and the more we can give machines the ability to do analysis on the current state of the system based on all the data that we're generating, plus the APIs that we have in place to manage the system, you can create a remediation loop and say, I'm generating data, machines can do analysis on that data, and then essentially reprogram the infrastructure to support the changes in the dynamic usage of the platform. That would be kind of an analytics example for how you might do big data and even machine learning to automate your management of your infrastructure, what I glibly call automating your automation.
I would imagine coming back to this event over the next 2-3 years or further, that you see a lot more machine learning and deep learning demonstrations around us, and not so much maybe talking about the details of the technology within the layers of the infrastructure itself, but more about what that facilitates and what that enables.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get enamored with technology. It's fun to talk about, especially as a technologist. What's really interesting from a customer point of view is what's the business value, what solution are you providing? And so we get excited in the initial stages about the potential of a technology, and then as we move into production, we stop talking so much about the details of the technology and really look at what's the business impact. How can I move better, move faster, be more efficient as a business? What's the solution that technology is really providing for me? And I think that's where we are today with NFV and with things like machine learning, deep learning. It's in the hype cycle right now, and we'll see that same kind of transition into use cases, solutions, production.
Well, it's good to have a leader in the network virtualization space here on our stage. In fact, you are wrapping up our coverage and programming of the Open Networking Summit 2017. So it's good to have you, and thanks for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. And that wraps up our coverage of the Open Networking Summit 2017. For all of our content, you can reach us at tinow.org.